My name is Miranda Kim. I am part of the Austin Speculative Futures chapter, and I have my colleague Adam here. Our Austin chapter is excited to present Matt Dobson, an innovation specialist at 18F. Matt is presenting Agile Futures, creating a virtuous cycle between speculative design and agile product development. Matt Dobson is a designer and technologist living in and working from Louisville, Kentucky. He's proud to be a member of the team at 18F, working to improve the user experience of government. Prior to joining 18F, he was the product designer at Humana's Digital Experience Center, a technology incubator, transforming Humana into a human-centered, tech-driven company. In his free time, he's a local leader at Louisville's Interaction Design chapter, and he recently started a Louisville Speculative Futures chapter. In the increasingly distant past, he was an art director, published a magazine, and produced a late-night variety show at a Tony Award-winning theater. Very excited to introduce him, and I'm going to hand it to you, Matt.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Again, I'm going to be talking about Agile Futures, how we can connect speculative design methods that we're talking about over these couple of days with design for Agile product development. So again, I'm Matt Dobson, he, him. I'm a designer at 18F. 18F is a technology and design consultancy inside the federal government where we work with all kinds of different agencies and offices to improve the experience of government. And because our team is fully distributed, I get to do that work from right here in Louisville, Kentucky. So we're in Louisville, I'm a local leader of the Interaction Design Association, and then recently have started a Design Futures chapter as well. Really excited to be talking to you all today. And again, Agile Futures, talking about connecting the kind of futures design with Agile product development and quick design. So I've been a designer of some stripe for my whole career, going on 20 years. And there's always been a real tension between in the roles I've done and what I've seen other designers work between kind of big design and really figuring everything out, kind of deeply understanding kind of the big bang, big design up front, or to the other end, emergent design, designing a tiny little piece of a thing at a time, and then learning and then adding another piece to it. Neither of those methods are perfect, and they both have some drawbacks. And so what I want to talk about today is how we can take design futures methods and combine those with the kind of build, test, learn cycles of Agile development to create a virtuous cycle of ongoing learning, exploration, while we're building and shaping new products and services. So essentially, it's just kind of 3 easy steps to better design through time travel. So step 1, speculative design. We're defining the parameters of our preferred futures. We're saying, what is it that we want to go, or where does we want to make sure that we don't end up? And from there, we want to go all the way back and say, okay, what's the first step we might want to take towards this future that we've defined, or this range of futures that we've defined? And then from there, responding and refining to what you're actually building, how it's actually being used, and what you've learned through making a thing real. Kind of rinse and repeat. So it's super easy. That's where it is. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more and talk about kind of big design up front first. So big bang design, big design up front. It's kind of a bit of the boogeyman for Agile design and that sort of more iterative product development. Suddenly here's a fully imagined something. There's been a design phase. All of the bits of intricacy of something has been understood. We've turned over every rock. We have this thing understood. This is the thing that we're going to make. Now it's simply a matter of getting it done. It's a first step in a phased approach. And there's a lot to like about kind of really feeling like you've got something understood and having a big, beautiful picture of the future. And there's a lot of folks that are involved in the making of things that really value that. One is businesses and stakeholders, having confidence in knowing that like what it is you're going to get out of your investment. If you're going to pay for a team to put time and money into making something, it's nice to know what that something's going to be. And managers like it. Certain kinds of managers can like it because if you know what a thing is, you can chop up into small pieces, assign out the work, and you have an idea of how close we are to being done. And designers, and I'm a designer, and I know that designers like nothing more to explore the complexities of something, to really dig in and think that, pull something apart and really understand how something works and say, okay, I've got this thing understood. Here's the vision. Here's where we're going to go. This is what we're gonna build. And having that time to think and consider a problem before committing to solutions it's really valuable. But ultimately, all these sort of big designs, they become fiction, and the bigger they are, the more wild and far out that fiction ends up being. Things change when the thing you design is never ever the thing that is built or delivered, because things change. Decisions are made during implementation. Things that may have seemed feasible or easy aren't. Design continues to happen, and sometimes it's happening by a product manager or by an engineer or by someone in a business. These kind of last minute decisions that change the way a thing looks or feels or works. And that as time goes on, the thing that is designed is less and less the thing that was actually made. It's fiction, and the more those things change, while we're still holding to this idea of the big design, the more that big design becomes less about the future and more about being designed for a past that doesn't really exist anymore. So there's a lot of risk when it comes to thinking that you can figure a whole thing out up front, especially something as complicated as a digital product at any sort of scale, or service design, or anything that involves complicated systems. You're looking at a lot of risks. Like, one is you're compounding your assumptions. All along the way, you're making your best guess, and you're stacking those things on top of each other. And the more that those are stacked without being evaluated with actual users or in real world scenarios, or without going through the real feasibility test of being implemented, the more likely that it is to fall apart. And if one of those foundational assumptions is wrong, like a Jenga tower, it can all come tumbling down. Uh, it really minimizes the impact of ongoing research. You see this a lot in kind of like agile development that's still really kind of more waterfall. Is well, the direction's been well defined, and the design and research becomes more about refinement and optimization. They can make small tweaks in the direction, but really can't say that there should be a big pivot or that we should really move in another way to meet a need. And related to that, the product vision can't evolve in response to new information. As you're building and you're learning, that shape of the thing that you thought you needed may not really be pointing in the right direction. And it's hard to shape that, evolve it, and continue to communicate it. And it turns your delivery team, your product teams, to do delivery as opposed to iterative development. It kind of makes it an assembly line manufacturing process rather than a creative cycle. So to the other end of that, to swing the pendulum, is emergent design. This idea of starting small and having a thing evolve. So emergent design means kind of figuring things out one step at a time. And agile teams and designers on agile teams have really embraced this idea. You build a little piece, feature by feature, you get feedback on it, and taking in quantitative and qualitative feedback, metrics, and then user impressions, and then letting that design evolve over time. It can be a really great way to work. And you're kind of only doing just enough design for each iteration. And there's a lot to love. Engineers love it because it kind of avoids over engineering, over architecturing. It fits in with some engineering principles like YAGNI, the you ain't gonna need it principle, not building anything or coding anything more than what's necessary to deliver that one piece of user value. And engineers can have more liberty and more impact on direction. That sort of feasibility and desirability get mixed together at the point of delivering, and get the whole team involved in the process. Uh, Managers like it. Certain types of managers like it in the sense that they can pivot and they can prioritize work based on what they're learning through user research and how customers are responding and new business demands coming in. And designers like it because they can take a more collaborative role in their teams. They can be elbow to elbow with their engineering partners, and they can really get invested in what they're learning from their users, and they can take what they're learning there and put it back into the product design in a really short period of time and start to see the impact of their work made real. And it's good. It can be nimble, it can be lightweight. A lot of lean UX, kind of the just enough research. The Erica Hall has that wonderful book about all the different methods have been developed to like really help designers work better in smaller chunks and work in kind of these iterative steps, like with their teams. So it can be a really great way to work. It can be really collaborative. But there's also challenges there. I mean, you can have sprawling products, kind of a mystery house architecture, adding a room at a time, maybe a stairwell because this room would look nice with stairs without concerns of what they may go to. A lot of different rooms without any sort of master plan to think, what is the whole house going to look like? How are things going to work together? It can be really unclear connection between the features that you're building in one day and what that might mean kind of long-term goals and product vision wise. What is the thing that we're making it look like when it grows up? And your teams can feel really disconnected and disempowered if they're making a feature at a time and aren't really clear where they're headed. And if you're not looking to the future to imagine, shape the vision of where you want to go, you're likely not also looking at possible consequences of heading into different territories. Um, I have a hard time believing that folks that are designing some of the products that we all use day to day, especially social media stuff, intend for there to be the negative consequences that we see in headlines. I don't think that designers kind of have to believe that designers at Facebook don't really want to like sow insurrection or hate. And I don't want to believe that designers at YouTube want to, through prioritizing ongoing engagement and people continuing to watch videos, at the price of people being radicalized to white supremacy. But those are the consequences of those products guided by metrics without really considering possible negative unintended consequences. Like how might this product go off course? And so emergent design comes with its own set of risk, right? So one, you're focusing on features over a system level view. The different pieces may not work together. It assumes change is cheap and easy. As a designer that's working in an iterative fashion, if you're working one emergent piece at a time, I know from personal experience, it's easy to make that first decision with the amount of information that you have. If you know that as you learn, you're going to have the chance to refactor it. If that's not there, it becomes increasingly hard to commit to those changes and increasingly expensive to the product as you kind of gather the kind of UI, UX debt along the way. The vision can be unclear. It can be difficult to communicate. Anybody on a team ought to be able to at any time give you a sort of elevator pitch about, okay, this is what my product's going to do for people. Here's what this service is going to be like when it's completed, and here's how it's going to make people's lives easier. And that can be really difficult when you're lost in the weeds of each individual feature or user story. And it's really hard to know if you're headed in the wrong direction. Is this next pivot we're making and going to get us into the window of the space that we want to go and help us meet our goals in a broad sense? Or is this the thing that's going to take us off into some unintended consequences that may have much larger negative implications? So what do we do? How do we strike the balance between these two different poles, and knowing that neither of them typically don't exist in a pure form, but what's the answer there? And so there we go, speculative design to the rescue. And again, I've got my futures code in, so I've got at least one box checked. So AKA design futures, I'll probably use those things interchangeably as I talk here. And so, this is a speculative design conference. I'm assuming a lot of you know what that is. But I think it's just good to say that speculative design is the tools that we use to kind of understand the implications of the technology that we're developing before we develop it. I love that. I think it's a pretty straightforward to think about it. When I think about it, I also like to describe it as kind of applied science fiction. How do we use imagining the future to change the way that we do work today? How do we connect today's work with tomorrow's vision? And the challenge for designers and product teams and service designers is how do we create that compelling vision of the future and still allow room for learning and flexibility and kind of real nimbleness and agility. So design futures are our tool for exploring all the different possible and preferable futures. As designers, as product people, as people who make new things, we're already in the business of the future. And whether or not that future is a sprint out from now, or a quarter, or the end of a years long, multi-years long contract cycle, we're continually imagining the future. And design futures methods let us do that more intentionally and help us really explore, okay, what are the new possibilities for this product or service, and where are the pitfalls? Where are the things that we know we want to avoid with it? So it's just taking those tools that we have to imagine what the next steps of things are, prototyping, road mapping, all those different things, and applying them to further horizons. So from design futures, we can get into design fictions, and those fictions are the things that help us define the parameters of what we think we really want. I love this quote from Ursula Le Guin. It talks about sci-fi being prediction and satire, and I don't know necessarily that the provocations we want to make are satire, but we definitely want them to be stimulating and to provoke conversation in the way that a really good piece of satire can. And so the thing is, if we know that big design up front ultimately becomes fiction as the thing that we design becomes further and further away from the thing that is real, why don't we just embrace that idea? Why don't we use speculative design to say, okay, we're going to intentionally craft fiction so that we can explore the benefits and consequences of our work rather than imagining that we can really shape and predict how this thing's going to be on the other end of the funnel. So there's some ingredients you need to be able to like kind of take that and apply it and start this loop between design futures and agile development and that build, test, learn cycle. And I'm not going to go super deep into any of these methods. The futures by design folks that talked earlier, I think some people are going to be in workshops this weekend, plenty of resources all over the place to really dig deep on the methods. So I'm going to give a glancing blow across those, but kind of talk about the pieces you need to start to assemble these fictions. I think the first thing that you need to do is be able to explore implications, the futures wheel, the implications wheel, the kind of the futures cone itself, to be able to look through those different lenses and to say, what are the first level, what's the first thing that's going to happen when we introduce this change? What if we start doing something with this new data source that we've talked about building this product on? Or what happens once we introduce this service? What's that first level consequence? Okay, what's 2-3 levels out? Using those steep lenses that societal changes, technological, environmental, economic, political, looking through those different lenses and more to explore those steps, further and further out. And what are the relationships between some of those different possible futures? Then plucking out those futures to create scenarios and looking both to the like, what's the new possibility? What's the new intellectual property for our company? What's the new features and benefits that we can provide for our users if we tap into this new technological possibility right now? And also the more dystopian, the negative ones. What if these things become true? What does that scenario look like? And what's the setting? What other things are happening at the time in the that you're imagining out to kind of create a place? And then you need to think about who lives in this place and in these scenarios. And the good news there is that as designers, as UX designers, as digital product designers, there are tools in our toolkit already for imagining people or making kind of amalgamations of groups of people. And so we can use the same tools that we use to create personas and using empathy maps, asking ourselves, oh, people that are at a certain, this point in the future, what are they seeing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they hearing? And using that same kind of lightweight empathy map to make the kind of proto persona that you would use to think about designing a feature for a product, you can use to think about being set into this world that you're shaping and crafting a fiction around. And so then once you have all the different pieces, you can start to put that into some different templates for storytelling. I really like this one. I'm borrowing this from Viraj Joshi, who did Postcards from the Future. He's going to do a workshop this weekend, and he borrowed it for this popular trope from movie trailers. It's like in a world where what are these people that you've just shaped? What are they going to do? And I think the Futures by Design folks have a similar method to kind of like really shaping these scenarios. And I think there's our world libs or mad libs around kind of how you can shape these stories. And there's a bunch of other really great methods out there too. IBM has a speculative design stories method that's part of their design thinking toolkit. Julian Bleeker has the Near Future Library or laboratory, and he's got all kinds of great blog posts and resources there, and does a weekly design fiction office hours Stuart Candy's method for reverse archaeology and time machine is another way of kind of shaping a story. Any tools that you have for storytelling, you know, written, video, theatrical, whatever, all of those things are relevant in a way for you to answer this question of like, what will people do in this world that you've imagined? And that those things from there are the place that gives us a chance to create those provocations. And there's postgates.com. That's another place with a ton of really great examples of these design fictions put into action. So the response to these things that you create, or even better yet, have created along with the people that you're working with, your partners, or the people who will be using your product or impacted by your product, or when you've shaped a thing to get them to respond to that. Those responses is this the thing we want? Oh no, that's terrifying. Oh yes, that's fantastic. Oh, that's silly. Whatever those things are, that helps put up the guardrails. Okay, within this realm of futures, that's okay. That's our realm of preferred futures. That's the guardrails. So once you've done all that, and you said, okay, we don't want to go here. We do want to go somewhere over here. You can pick one of those futures and then think about slightly nearer in, slightly closer to the present in the life of your product, and think about the product narrative. Tell another fiction, not quite as far out, but saying, tell the story of the benefit, the human perspective of the things that you're making. What is this thing going to do to improve people's lives as we're on the path to this aspirational future? And telling that from a human perspective, not the knobs and twiddly bits, not the features, but what is this going to do for people? How is it going to change their lives and relationships to others, or to the systems, or you know, the business, whatever else it is. And then from there, you can identify the features that would be necessary to take the first steps towards those benefits. And those can be just the user stories that fall into your Agile backlog. And so you can go from, you know, so here we are. So this is basically just backcasting, right? So we've picked a preferred future or a range of preferred futures. And we said, oh, if we start stepping back like this is what's going to get there. There's all kinds, again, really good methods out there for exploring backcasting. We essentially want to get back closer to the present, and that we can use fiction all the way down from the far out design fiction to say, is this what we want, to the product narrative that's saying, oh, this is the benefit that we feel like this is going to provide in the not too distant future, to a user story, which is, as this type of user, I want this feature so I can accomplish X goal, to shape those first few steps. And as those features get built, you can start to adjust your vision of tomorrow. So that work that we're doing day to day, user story by user story, feature by feature, we continually shape the vision of where we want to go and what this future looks like. So we start our cycle of ongoing learning. We're building a thing, we're learning from users. Our teams are still maintaining autonomy and agency. They're learning they can make slightly bigger shifts in the direction they need to go to respond to emerging needs and to the emerging needs of the business. This creates a tool for resilient road mapping. So instead of, again, another fiction of imagining that we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can say, okay, we know that our teams have the flexibility and the autonomy to shift, you know, a little bit or a lot within these parameters. And so even if we take different steps to get to the future, and the future we end up with is a little bit different than what we initially imagined, we have an empowered team that can make choices guided by that future activity the whole way through. So the way I've talked about it kind of sounds like, oh, some futures up front, and then we're build, test, learn with Agile. But I think the real trick is to create a sustainable cycle of kind of large future loops and these, you know, kind of smaller Agile build, test, learn feature releases to kind of keep us going back to the future. And I want to say that, first of all, this time travel can get messy. We can't really predict the future, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And it's really easy to get locked into a vision of the future if you spend a lot of time crafting a world, say, oh no, this is definitely where we want to go. That kind of gets us back to big design up front. And it's really easy to give into the pressures of today to say, oh, you know, we'll just make this decision here and can worry about the future later. So we got to be able to strike that balance and keep things from getting too messy. And I think one of the real tricks to that is going to be figuring out, how do we do lean futures in the same way that we do lean UX? And how do we do just enough futures so that we don't have a huge sunk cost at the beginning? We've done just enough futures to really ask these hard questions, But as we've taken a few steps down the road and we know that our future is shifting based on what we've learned, then we can loop back through this cycle of design futures and speculative design to make sure that these parameters are still intact, or that there's new risks that are emerged that we might need to avoid, or new opportunity that's emerged through combinations of stuff we didn't anticipate. And then I want to say, like, as we're doing this, as we're traveling through time and we're iterating and we're refactoring and we're considering again and we're learning all the time, and we know we can't really predict the future, that it's really important to be graceful, to give everybody on our team some grace and space, and to be excellent to each other. So hopefully this is helpful. I'm Matt Dobson, and I think it'd be great to put all this stuff together. Thanks, y'all.
Matt, thank you so much for your presentation. Personally, for me, it's been very eye-opening. I really love how pragmatic you were and really addressing just the pain points we have today in terms of dealing with teams and then seeing how futures design can really help them. I definitely see it for early stage startups when they're kind of strapped for cash, they're under a lot of pressure, they just want to execute. It can be difficult, but I really love this framework that you created. We have a couple minutes. We have one question in the chat. It's from Catherine, I believe. Matt, have you been able to apply this approach to a contemporary digital product, or are you hoping to?
I think in smaller pieces, in the kind of like headline from the future sort of level of engagement, or kind of the imagine what goes wrong here, or liberating structures has a method where they kind of like, what is the thing you could do to make sure this failed? Some combination of those things are really useful in kickoffs and, like, kind of those initial bursts of work. I've used the implications wheel to explore kind of the ethics, or maybe kind of the consequences of, if these are the metrics we choose to measure success of this product by, we look 2-3 levels out, is this going to incentivize behavior that we don't want, or is this, or something else to be there? And I've used both design fiction and the implication wheel in trying to consider like a new suite of products that might happen based on a new source of data. So, okay, if we have access to this sort of data, what's the first kind of product we can make? Okay, what happens from there and from there, and saying, okay, here's some new opportunities. These things might be products that we could start developing now, aiming at this future space. All super lightweight, kind of whiteboard to quick storytelling and quick illustration, and then looping into that product design cycle.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm just gonna check if there are any other questions. So far, people are just saying this is super helpful.
Yeah, I think, Matt, you tethering these speculative methods and this way of working to something as tangible and near term as product design, I think has struck a chord with a lot of people. I think there's always that chasm, right, between like the really meta future stuff and the really tangible tactical product stuff that a lot of us do in our day to day. So I think people are appreciating that. We certainly appreciate it.
I'm going to squeeze in one question. Thanks for the talk. How far should the speculation be? A lot of teams are quite feature oriented, and it's extremely hard to orient them to a vision that doesn't appear near term.
Well, first of all, thanks, Adam. I'd love to keep exploring this connection between the kind of far out and the near term. That's the constant question with this stuff. I think it has to be far enough out to get out of the bounds and the near term obstacles of today. If it can be really liberating when you're asking about how do we make this future true in a way that isn't like, if that true means that we have to question our org structure, or a way that may be an indictment for like the current way we do things, which might have an effect on your job. It has to be far enough out that those realities can be talked about in a way that's abstract. So to get you out of like, oh, I'm saying something bad about this person, or being, dissent, there's dissent here. So just far enough out for that, but not so far out that I think that the really kind of more fantastical can be introduced, or where you can kind of introduce that sort of kind of magic wand miracle technology that kind of solves a problem. But I work for the government, and we're talking some 5-year contract cycles are not an uncommon thing, and the world can be very different in 5 years. And so if you can like think out at least as far as you're willing to write a contract. Then or 2 contract cycles is a very realistic thing, and people you've worked with have imagined 10 years into the future. They're doing it all the time, and you're asking them to be more intentional about it and be like, okay, we want to avoid making the legacy software of tomorrow. You know, can we at least imagine as far out as the last piece of software we had to update, which might be from the 90s. So that buys you 20 years. So like, you know, find something that is far enough where you can frame it up. But yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, it's always like, oh, we'll just AI it, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it looks like we do have to segue to the next session. But Matt, we at the Austin chapter, we'd certainly love to host you remotely in the coming months. I think Mirandy's would be super excited when she inherits the chapter. But yeah, this was so great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Really appreciate it.